the question is no longer if your organization will be targeted, it's whether your leadership team is prepared when it happens. Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the leadership podcast for CEOs and senior executives that are operating at the highest level. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Today, we're joined by one of the world's top cybersecurity executives. We're going to discuss what every CEO needs to know about AI and cybersecurity. And joining me for this conversation, as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Please excuse this glare. I'm trying to do all I can, but it's a sunny day. And I know you're like, well, why don't you just close the blinds? Yeah, I've tried that. So just bear with me. But as always, great to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is going to be a great show. Ted, I can tell when it's going to be a great show because the backstage conversation is great. Like what we were talking about would really have made a good episode. I should have just hit the record button because that would have
that could have got it going.
Yeah, it's just the bad actors. They're just getting badder and badder and more sophisticated. Then you throw in AI, and you really just have to be careful.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get into this. This is going to be a fascinating conversation. We're getting into what every CEO needs to know about AI and cybersecurity. And you think about it in today's time, it's possible you could have somebody who's been working for you in your organization who's not really a human. And you not know it, right?
Right.
It's be some AI bot. So we'll get into all of that and what you can do to protect yourself, protect your organization, protect your information. So our guest today, he's the Vice President of Global Security and Chief Information Security Officer at NetApp. With more than 40 years of experience leading through major technology shifts, he's helped organizations navigate cybersecurity, cloud transformation, AI risk, enterprise security at the highest level. Today, he's joining us to discuss what every CEO needs to know about AI and cybersecurity. Please join me in welcoming to the show, Gavin Guttersen.
And the crowd cheers. Look, I want your title, Ted. I mean, all around good guy. That needs to be added to the end of my my accolades here. That's the best one.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That means I haven't gotten on Eric's bad side too much yet. He continues to call me that. So
yeah, he has gotten on my bad side quite a bit, but it's
well, he just got so used to saying that. So
right. It's in the script, so you got to stay with it. There you
go. That's right.
Hey, Eric, I'm gonna mess you up just a little bit here. You said that you could have a bad actor that's working in your environment that's technically an AI bot. I'll take you a step further. There's companies out there that are creating AI bots that they plan to get hired on at various companies as a good actor. There will be a time in the not too distant future where you can hire AI to go do things for you in your organization.
Sure.
That's going to make life interesting.
It is. Yeah. So we'll get into that. And we need to really get into what do people need to do to prepare themselves for this AI. I mean, it could be how you prepare yourself for the productive and positive aspects of AI, but also these bad actors that are going to be using AI for nefarious means. There's a lot we can get into, but let's kind of give everybody the kind of the backstory. So you began your career in the 80s before cloud and AI existed. What was it? What was it
that made him feel really, really good? Back in the day of the abacus.
Yeah, I'm moving those pegs across that abacus, baby.
It was back in the day, right?
Back in the day.
What was it that originally drew you into technology and cybersecurity?
I didn't really even get into technology until my mid-20s, and then it stumbled across it. I was working retail and I started selling computers and fell in love. Just something about them, they always clicked. And so a few years into the process, a couple of friends of mine and I got together and we started our first of several companies, and it was basically a computer maintenance company. We would do maintenance contracts for small offices and small networks and so on, and that built into doing cabling, which built into creating an internet service provider back in the early days of the internet. And we're humming along, doing basically enjoying life and building our company. And somebody thought it was a good idea to write an article about us and put it in Inc. magazine. And this is back when magazines were on the shelf. For those of you that are too young to remember this day,
Oh man!
The day that the magazine hit the shelf, my mail server was crashed, my web server was owned. I just realized very rapidly that security through obscurity just doesn't work. We were fine as long as nobody knew about us. As soon as somebody knew about us, we were owned instantly. And so it started my journey down this path.
Wow.
Okay, so you did build one of the fastest growing technology firms
We did.
in those
We
early
got
days.
Deloitte & Touche's Fast 50. We hit a lot of accolades. It was a fun time. I mean, the early days of the internet, things were moving fast, and we loved being on the bleeding edge. We loved playing in places that sometimes didn't make us a whole lot of money, but we certainly had a lot of fun. We were running fiber through schools across Eastern North Carolina. We were developing cloud apps back 10, 15 years before they even called it cloud. It was a very fun time.
Okay, so what were some of your biggest lessons from entrepreneurship that still kind of shape you to this day?
If you're going to start a company, have a plan for how you're going to end the company. I think, our biggest challenge is we grew and grew and grew and then realized we had this massive monster that we had to keep feeding. When you get a lot of employees out there and you get a lot of business going, and, in our case, we had hundreds of miles of fiber out there sitting on telephone poles, and you're paying the electric company and the telephone company for every one of those connections, and whether you have a customer on that fiber or not, and so we just had this big monster that kept eating. And it got to a point that I started the company with some friends because we loved what we were doing. And we ended up basically doing everything but what we started the company to do. We became accountants. We became customer service representatives. We basically wore all the hats. And at one point we were offered a very nice payday. And we all looked at each other and went, well, shoot, if they're going to offer us a bunch of money, we can make even more money if we do it ourselves. Should have taken the money. So it definitely changed my thought process. I think doing it now, I would look at a company as an entity, as a thing, as its own creation, and have a way to basically say, okay, at some point, this company is out going to grow my capabilities. Do I either up level? Do I bring in help? Or do I sell it off? What do I do with it when it hits that point? For us, we were just young and carefree. We just figured we'd run it forever.
So the kind of the takeaway is just beginning with the end in mind.
Have a plan. Absolutely. Yeah. And that goes with everything. I mean, you think about it, we spend more time planning our annual vacation than we do planning our careers. And that goes whether you're an entrepreneur or you're working for someone else. I've spent 2 decades as an entrepreneur. I've now spent almost 2 decades in the corporate world. It's the same either way. Have a plan. You don't have to follow it to the letter, but take some time and think about where you're going to go. If you go on a journey and you don't at least have a map and a general idea on how you're going to get there, where are you going to end up? You might not end up anywhere near where you think you want to be.
Yeah, it's funny. We had one of our previous guests, name was Dr. Terry Levine, and she had bought and sold like 8 different companies. Started and sold 8 different companies, and that was her thing. Every company, she was very clear on what the end game was going to be.
Exactly.
And it ended up.
I ran into it was funny. I was at an event and somebody introduced me to a peer of his and said, in this particular world, this person is not considered to be a success. I was like, why is that? And he says, well, he started a company. He got to the second round of funding. He sold the company for $30 million. He went out and started another company, got to the second round of funding, sold it for $30 million. He's now in his third company, but he keeps selling it at $30 million instead of waiting for the big payday. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, this guy's got $60 million in his pocket. That's a success in my book. He knew what he was good at. He knew he didn't want to try to take the next level. And so he was smart enough to go, this is what I can do. I'm going to hand it off and move on. And then I'm going to start my next venture.
Yeah, for sure. So have a plan, begin with the end in mind. I mean, I know this is a AI cybersecurity episode, but I think we definitely need to clear and clarify that. So,
and be flexible. I mean, the world is changing so ridiculously fast. Look, I watched the internet explode. I got in at the very early days of the internet. At one point, I had 30,000 people giving me $24.95 a month. It was a really good time of my life. It exploded. It was crazy how fast it exploded. It's nothing compared to what's happening with AI. A really good analogy I like to use, if I came to you 500 years ago and you were a blacksmith and I told you that, look, in 500 years, those horseshoes you're making, we're going to be able to make more horseshoes in one day than your entire clan can make in a year. After you got over the initial, oh my God, I've got a time traveler talking to me, and just went to the actual question, you're going to look at this and you're going to go, oh, okay, wait a minute. What's my family going to do? How are they going to make a living? All they've ever done is make horseshoes. How are they going to survive? And then you're going to jump right after that to, wait a minute, what's the quality of these horseshoes going to be? If they're being mass produced, the artisanship will be gone. What's the quality of these going to be? At no point does your brain have the context to make the jump to, wait a minute, horseshoes are irrelevant because horses are irrelevant because we're driving cars and flying airplanes. You're not going to go there because you don't have that context to make that leap. I pose that AI is exactly the same scenario, except we're not talking 500 years. We're talking 5 years. I don't think that anybody on this planet truly understands contextually how much the world is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years. It won't be the same.
Yeah. So let's get into this now. So what do you see as the biggest AI-related cybersecurity threat that CEOs are underestimating right now?
So AI is nothing more than a tool to lower the bar of entry. So if you think about, remember when people started developing web pages, and then you had these companies come out and they made it easy. And now anybody can go out and develop a web page. You log on to a cloud app somewhere and you develop a web page. AI is making it easy. I've got people that have never developed a line of code in their life that are out here and they're coding with AI and they're creating some phenomenal products. They're doing some wonderful things with this that have nothing to do. They're not developers. They're subject matter experts, but they just go and sit down and have a conversation with AI and come up with what they need. That's definitely lowering the bar of entry for people. It's also lowering the bar of entry for bad actors, because now a very low capable bad actor can now amplify what their abilities are through the use of AI. And we're seeing it. We just recently saw where a water company or a water treatment facility or water delivery facility was hacked because a bad actor took some prompts that he did on one AI platform and some prompts that he did on another AI platform and created this exploit that took over a water plant.
Wow.
Not complicated anymore. And so I think in general, people, but certainly CEOs, are starting to get this wake up call that, wait a minute, we have to be very conscious about just basic hygiene. Things that we were able to kind of overlook before because security through obscurity. You have a company that's been around for 10, 20, 30 years. There's a lot of things that have been overlooked over time. AI finds those things really, really rapidly. Ted, have you heard of Mythos yet? So Mythos is Mythos, yes, it's Anthropic's latest version of LLM that's come out. It's basically their latest revision. It's actually on hold at the moment. You'll spend weeks reading on this. The reality is all of them are coming out with, all the different companies are coming out with similar capabilities, but it's finding vulnerabilities. It's able to go in and chain together multiple vulnerabilities that people hadn't cared about in decades. It's able to chain them together and come up with something that becomes an exploit, something that becomes an attack vector. It's finding critical vulnerabilities in packages that have been around for 15, 20 years that have been scanned multiple times. Mythos is finding it, as are some of the newer models out here. So hygiene is becoming really, really critical. I mean, we're going to be in a situation, 4 or 5 years from now, where most code is being delivered with next to no vulnerabilities because of AI's help. But we got to make it through the next few years.
You got to get there first.
We got to get there first, and it's going to be a bumpy ride.
So for the non-technical person, can you kind of define and explain what you mean when you say hygiene? That person that doesn't.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, because some people are out here thinking maybe a shower, deodorant.
And you're not far off. You're not far off.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question here. Do you have any kind of a smart light bulb or a coffee maker that's now connected to the internet, or a refrigerator that's connected? Take like a light bulb. You buy this light bulb for $15. It has a little chip in it that probably costs 25 to 50 cents, made by the lowest bidder. I guarantee you there's not been a lot of work put into security on that little chip. And I guarantee that chip is never getting upgraded. And that chip is now sitting on your network at home with who knows what vulnerabilities. Those vulnerabilities can now be leveraged against us. So when I say hygiene, you're never going to patch that chip. That chip, it's there. So you have two options. You either get that out of your network, which we like those things. I like my fancy light bulbs. Or you put something between you and the rest of the world that protects you from that being a problem. And that's what I mean by hygiene. And when you start looking at that from a bigger company's point of view, we've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of devices sitting out in our environment. Every one of them has chips. Now, hopefully some of them are better than 25-cent chips and they can be upgraded and whatnot. But that's really what CEOs are focusing on, is how do we make sure that attack surface, that things that people could possibly exploit, is as low as possible.
So you're basically saying, when you're talking about those chips, you're talking about anything that's like an IoT type of.
Exactly. If it's connected to the network, it's basically part of your attack surface. And it just became, over the last month, it just became really, really obvious that things that people used to be able to take weeks and months to deal with, now the time, if I take one of these newer AI models and I point it at a particular attack surface, it may find vulnerabilities in a matter of minutes or hours, and it may give me exploits immediately. So for a bad actor, that becomes a heck of a tool.
So let's talk about this. So what's the first warning sign that a company's cybersecurity strategy is outdated?
I would say over the last 6 months, everybody's cybersecurity, their whole environment's outdated, just because things are moving so fast. AI, we have AI models that are building new AI models. So, things that took 2 years ago are taking 2 months now. They'll take 2 weeks, in a few months. So I think everybody has to go back and look at this from the start. For companies, for large enterprises, it's all about automation. I don't have the ability to say, okay, I'm going to have a person take a look at this thing, make a decision about it, open a ticket to somebody else, have a team work on it, do whatever we're going to do with it. That takes weeks and months for that type of stuff to happen in larger corporations. We're not going to have that type of time in the coming weeks and months. It's getting to the point now that you're dealing with hours, days, weeks, if you're really, really lucky. So we have to absolutely speed up everything we're doing. And the reality is, speeding things up comes with its own risk. Part of the slowdown when you're dealing with enterprises is that you're testing things to make sure you don't create problems along the way. If I go in there and I immediately patch all my servers, and let's say I'm a bank and I'm immediately go patch all my servers, I could cause outages in those servers. That outage is a problem. Just as bad as the bad actor being a problem. And so you've got to weigh that out. And then if you really want to make life complicated, over the past several years, compliance has now become probably a bigger risk for most companies than security. There's so many different compliances, both in the US and especially in Europe, that have massive fines involved in them. So you're in a situation where if you're not doing the right thing at the right time and notifying the right person, you could come back with a fine that could be millions of dollars in some of these big companies.
Wow.
It's getting complicated.
Yeah.
So you're not only concerned about the technology issues. Now you got to be worrying about whatever is out there to govern the technology.
Absolutely. And if you're in California, it might be different, rules than if you're in North Carolina. And if you're working in Europe or in Asia, you definitely have different rules. And sometimes those rules completely conflict with each other. You'll have to do something in the US and then find out that, wait a minute, that just made me non-compliant in Ireland. And so sometimes you've got to figure out how to map that stuff out. Like I say, it's becoming a full-time effort just to keep up with compliances.
Man, so we're talking to Gavin Guttersen about what every CEO needs to know about AI and cybersecurity. So I'm a big believer, Gavin, in the fundamentals, right? And I just think a lot of times things get sideways in whatever discipline because you got away from those fundamentals. So the leader that's watching this now that don't have a technical background, what are those non-negotiable cybersecurity fundamentals that they need to understand and have in place?
God, there's so many different directions I could take that answer, but I think you're absolutely right. I think depending upon the size company, you need to look at what's your risk and what's your risk appetite. If I'm a small startup and I'm out here and everything I have is sitting in Amazon or QuickBooks or insert SaaS application now, and all of my customers I'm dealing with through those platforms that are being managed by other companies, and I'm not dealing with anybody outside of the US. I've got a small defined space, then I'm probably in a pretty darn good place. And I would think that my risk appetite would probably be fairly high because I don't have a lot to lose. I don't have a lot of people looking over my shoulder from a compliancy point of view. And I've got these other companies that are looking after my cyber well-being. But as you start to grow and as you start to sprawl what that, where your risk is there, now take a large company, you're in the millions or the billions of dollars in sales. Now all of a sudden compliance becomes extremely expensive if you miss it. It literally could be percentages of your gross revenue for the whole year, which could be quite a bit of money. If you do have a cyber incident, that could mean disaster when it comes to depending upon what you're trying to deliver. So prime example, I'm in a group that a number of our CISOs get together and we talk, and we were talking with a CISO from a regional donut manufacturing group. And I did not realize how much technology goes into the delivery and the creation and just everything about delivering food services. And so as I, my eyes are opening as we're going through this. They don't have any of the compliance issues we're dealing with. They're not multinational. They're not dealing with all that, but they are tied into, cell phone apps where you can order them online. They are tied into, various different systems throughout the world where you can pull this stuff in. And so the technology that they're using is actually pretty impressive. The amount of AI that they're using was substantial. I was really, really impressed. And again, it's a donut company, so I think we're in a situation now where, depending upon your risk appetite, depending upon what business you're in and what you have to deal with, if you're dealing with federal government, if you're dealing with compliance issues or not, I think you start off by making sure that, just like you would in a car, if I get into a car, I'm going to make sure I'm covering the basics to make sure I don't have an accident. But then I'm also going to make sure that I limit what I call the blast radius if I do have an accident. I'm going to make sure everybody's got a seatbelt on. I'm going to make sure my kids are in car seats. I'm going to make sure I have airbags, because inevitably you're going to have an accident sooner or later, big one, little one. You don't want it to be what you would consider an extinction level event. You don't want your kid dying. And so you do the things to protect what's important, and you find that balance. You're never going to stop all accidents. You're never going to stop all cyber attacks. You're never going to stop some impact when those things happen. So figure out what the most important things are, put your energy on protecting them first and foremost. And then as your appetite or as your ability to protect more, then you work your way out from there. And then go get a nap at night, because otherwise you'll never sleep. You know?
Yeah. Wow. That was interesting the way you put that. So you really look at, and within your environment, what are those critical assets,
You have
right?
to.
What are those, like you said, that your family, your child, that's a critical asset. So within the organization, that data that you must have, that you must protect, right? You make sure that you have that that encapsulated in some type of a security framework.
Absolutely. And I mean, look, most of us, we've got kids, we've got nieces and nephews. In my case, I got a whole slew of grandkids. You can't be there to protect them from every little thing, but you can absolutely put certain things in place to minimize the chance of something catastrophic. It's the same thing from a company point of view. Figure out what those catastrophic things are, protect yourself against those first, and then start building out from there. I often get asked, what's your job? And when I start to explain, they go, isn't it to secure your company? No, it's not. If my job was to secure my company, I would turn off every laptop. I'd pull every wire. Secure, done.
Yeah,
no
that's it.
Problem solved. That's not my job.
100% secure.
My job is absolutely to support my company in doing what it's designed to do, what its charter is, as fast and as efficiently as possible, with a reasonable security risk model there to get the job done. The only way to be risk-free is to turn everything off. There's no company on the planet that's going to operate in that environment. So you have to find out what's reasonable.
Totally agree.
Wow. And you're never, and no matter what, you're never going to be,
there is no
100% secure.
This is a career field where we're going to be around for a long time.
Wow. Yeah.
We've defeated all possible bad actors, and we've eliminated all risk and threat. My work is done here.
Every great idea that comes out creates opportunities for people to start businesses to do wonderful things. But there is a certain percentage of the population that looks at every single one of those things and figures out a way to do something bad with it. And so, part of this is just trying to get ahead of what they might do and figuring out ways to put things in place to stop that.
Man, if these bad actors would just use their powers for good, just think of where our technology would be, right?
So Eric, so when you think about a hacker, most people think some guy in a mama's basement with a hoodie on. let me give you the reality. It's likely a nation state that has the kind of resources that nations have, or a very large company that rivals the size of the company I work for in a foreign country that has the resources that I have, and they have 100% of their business model is to go out and do what I would consider being a bad actor. They're in it for the money. And there's lots and lots of ways to make money if your morality is different than what yours and mine is. And imagine how bright and intelligent people are across the US and across the countries and people you deal with. You have people in foreign lands and some in the US that realize that they can take that same ingenuity and flip the script a little bit and make money out of it. And it's good money. And that's what we're dealing with. When you start talking about people that have like ransomware, ransomware as a service, you hear about that all the time. Some of these groups, they have call centers that you call into. They have support teams that will help you make the payments to them. They literally, some of these hacking groups, they have tiered hacking where one tier finishes what they're doing. They open a ticket for the next tier. This is structured. This is not some guy in a hoodie in his mama's basement. This is a $7.2 trillion business.
Wow.
It's a lot of money.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So what is it though that separates the organizations that recover quickly from a cyber attack versus those that just never fully recover?
again, back on hygiene, covering the basics. Like you said, it's the fundamentals. If you absolutely focus on making sure you've got a good A effort on the fundamentals, and you've got a good C plus B effort on everything else. And then I think the other big piece of it is transparency. You'll see a lot of these. I've said on multiple podcasts where I'm hearing about the hacks that come in every single day, and it's disturbing how many companies go down. The one thing that's real consistent is the ones that they pop up and say, "Hey, we were just hacked. Here's what we lost. Here's what we're doing about it. Here's how we're moving forward." They get hit, but they don't get hit in the same way. The folks that try to cover it up and try to hide in the shadows, they usually get eviscerated before it's done. Transparency is a big part of this, but ultimately reducing that blast radius by protecting the fundamentals, making sure that you don't have unneeded risk out there. It's really easy to get stuck trying to protect the lunch menus. At the end of the day, that doesn't give you any value. But you darn sure want to protect the things that do give you value. If you've got something that's uniquely your company's, protect it. If you've got customer data, protect it. Whether or not somebody gets to the stuff that's not necessarily secret sauce, it is what it is.
So how should a CEO think about balancing AI as far as innovation, but keeping in mind the cybersecurity risk component too? How do you balance that?
You're asking somebody that works for a company that's extremely AI forward. We've been developing AI in our product lines for decades now, probably a little over 2 decades now. Most people didn't hear about AI until these GPT models came out. So last couple of years, 2.5 years. The reality is it's been a progression for decades at this point. It's moving so fast now. I had an employee one time ask me if AI was going to take his job, and my response was, no, AI is not gunning for your job. Somebody that knows AI better than you is gunning for your job. My recommendation to anybody that's coming into the industry of any industry at this point, I don't care if you're going into marketing or if you're going into sales or you're going into tech, you better be competent in AI. You better at least understand AI. Now we can sit here and talk all day long about Terminator coming and the end of the world. None of us are going to control that. AI. This is a global phenomenon. It's moving a mile a minute. Keep our fingers crossed that the people that are controlling that are doing the right things. But assuming we're all still here tomorrow, you better at least understand what AI is capable of at the moment and where it's going so that you adjust your job accordingly. AI is not going to replace the plumber. So if I'm going into plumbing, I'm probably in pretty good shape. Okay. But AI will absolutely make a plumber a better plumber. It'll make their troubleshooting better. It'll make their ability to do their job better. So maybe one plumber is going to be able to do twice the jobs of another because they're not spending so much time researching a problem. But there is definitely some industries that are going to change pretty dynamically because of AI. I was in 2 different airports in the last month that had AI-powered, AI-driven robotic wheelchairs going from terminal to terminal, picking up people at their gate and taking them to their next gate.
Wow.
Autonomous. You see it in the big cities now where they're delivering DoorDash with little shopping carts. They've got Waymos out there. Amazon's got their own version of little cars out there. I mean, this stuff is coming fast. You didn't see most of this stuff even just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, even in the airports, you see like the little cleaning
things. Yes,
just going by themselves autonomously.
You see it in Sam's Club and BJ's and the big shopping places. They're using the automated ones. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of this stuff that is it's going to be cheaper. I mean, how many places have you gone into lately that have kiosks? It's just going to be cheaper. It's going to drive that. So I wouldn't plan on being a front end, attendant at a fast food place. That stuff's going away rapidly. But that doesn't mean that fast food is going away. No. That doesn't mean that the jobs related to it aren't going to change. We didn't have most of the career paths in my company didn't exist 30 years ago. And some of them are going to go away because of AI. but there'll be new ones that'll join up. And so again, I think it's on all of us to just become as educated as we can over where the world's going, so that we're prepared for it, and we're not building our skills in an area that's useless to us.
So Gavin, I know a person recently, I guess, that lost a job, and she was in a I guess a tier 1 kind of space, in like a call center type of thing, and lost her job, and now it's like trying to figure out what's next, and was asking me, like, do I go into cyber? Do I, I'm going to take some classes and like all these different scenarios, and it seems like the easy answer is to say, get into AI, but how would you? I mean, what guidance?
I'm with you. Get into AI is kind of this amorphic, go do this.
Yes. Go to the gym, join the gym. Right?
Yeah, exactly. They're absolutely right. I mean, more and more companies, they are finding ways to create efficiencies, and it's hitting a lot of our entry-level jobs. It's a concern I've had for a long time, even before AI, because how do you end up with mid-level and senior level people if they don't start off in an entry-level spot? You're going to see a lot of smaller companies starting up and building around some of these new technologies. They won't be in all cities. That's going to be the downside, but there will be a lot of them. And a lot of this stuff allows for remote. A lot of this stuff allows for hybrid. I think if I was coming into the industry today, I would find something that I would start basically with a smaller company and try to find a spot in there, and then work my way into, whereas before you would come into a big company at an entry level and work your way up. A lot of those entry level spots just aren't going to exist in the bigger companies. They will exist in the smaller companies. And so, I think you kind of get out there and you start looking and seeing where the direction's going. I've got people on my team that have completely changed careers in the past few years. I've got an amazing manager that was a weather girl a few years ago, but she had so much storm chasing and so much, disaster management background that it was just a perfect pivot into this space. I've got a guy that literally is developing amazing videos and things, and with AI. He had never touched AI before a year ago. So there's ways that you can kind of pivot into this stuff, but you're absolutely right. It's going to be a challenge, and I think the colleges are not doing a service when they're telling people, go get a cyber certificate and go find a job. Well, that's fine if you live in, India or some foreign country where you can get in. It's not in the US. There's just not that many of those entry-level roles in the US right now. And so find a different path. I tell you, we bring a lot of our mid-level and upper-level roles from other disciplines, things that are getting a little more commoditized. We'll bring senior level network people over to cyber. We'll bring senior level administrators from applications over to cyber. And there's definitely some entry-level roles in some of those spaces, but I think it's really going to be start with smaller companies and work your way up is probably the quickest path.
One thing I don't think we talk much about is you're at NetApp now as the system.
Yep.
Right. What can you tell us about NetApp? I mean, I know there's a major player in the technology space.
It is a fun place to be. So look, we are the only company on the planet that has data products that span all the major hyperscalers and the on-prem. So you can literally store your data. If you think of, large 3-letter agencies or pretty much any of the large companies that store huge amounts of data, you could probably name off a dozen of them just without even thinking about it. They're probably sitting on NetApp filers in the back end. NetApp's been around for 3.5 decades now. Started off really being that on-prem data storage company. It's now morphed into very much a hybrid cloud. Move your data from point A to point B with minimal effort. The beauty of it right now with all this stuff that's coming up with AI is that we're one of the few companies on the planet that can absolutely guarantee you that your backups are going to be there when you need them to be. If you look at some of the stuff that's been happening with ransomware, one of the first things a bad actor does is they go into your backup solution, they delete all your backups. They can't NetApp. It's not even possible. Wow. And so it puts us in a really unique position. And what's been really cool over the last few years is that now we've really focused quite a bit on where data goes next. AI requires clean, structured, managed data. Industry, companies for decades now have just kind of put data everywhere, willy-nilly. There's not been a lot of structure to it. We're bringing tools in that allow you to actually bring that structure back into your data and provide clean data to the AI that you're using. So it's kind of fun. It puts us in a really unique place to be able to take advantage of all the things that are happening with AI right now.
This has been a fantastic episode. As we start to come down the home stretch, what are some final thoughts that you want to leave people that they should be remembering about our episode today?
Like, I always take this back to home. I've got my wife's best friend called me up first thing this morning in a bit of a panic because she had received a evites, from a friend to go to some party or something, and clicked on it and typed in her Gmail password. And realized that as it's sitting there spinning that this was phishing. It just snagged her primary password, and immediately went out, changed her password, and immediately went out and did all the things to lock everything down. And calls me up in a complete panic, and I went, "Wait a minute, do you have multi-factor authentication?" She goes, "Yes." I was like, "Okay, great. Then take a breath. What are you using for your primary authentication?" She goes, "Passkeys." I'm like, "Oh, then take a big breath." In short, we have technologies out here that are far better than a password. I've got technology at my disposal that will crack just about any human generated password. I don't care how long it is. It's amazing how quickly it cracks it. But if you notice when you're going in and you're creating passwords nowadays, one of the things that most of these browsers give you an option of is to put this random 16 character jumbled password in there. Use it and then store that password. You're never going to use it again anyway until you change it. Why put something that you can remember that the bad actor can crack easy? Never put it in more than one place, because in her case, that was the next question I asked, is, have you used this password anywhere else? No. It's not on any of your bank accounts. No. Okay, then great. Take a breath, because the problem is I can take a password and I can put it up in a repo, in like Amazon, and I can show you where 23 seconds after I post it where somebody can see it, it's tried against my environment. 23 seconds.
Wow.
You cannot respond that fast as a human being. And so literally, if you do basics, again, your fundamentals, make sure you've got complicated passwords, preferably ones you didn't create that the computer created. But if you create it, make sure they're really complicated, not, password 123 exclamation point. That's useless. That's cracked in seconds. Make sure you have two-factor authentication turned on everything, preferably with an app. But if you have to do it to your phone where it text message you, that's better than nothing. By all means, do it. If it gives you options for facial rec or for passkeys, use them. By all means, passwords are the biggest risk you have out there. And whatever you do, don't use those passwords on multiple environments, because, again, you want to limit that blast radius. When they crack into account A, you don't want them to take out 9 other accounts before you get account A password changed. So make sure everything's separate on those. Simple things. Turn on notifications on your credit cards. When you charge a penny on your credit card, it should ding your phone. That way, when your phone dings and you didn't swipe your credit card, there's a problem. Another big one that a lot of people don't do, lock your credit accounts. There's 3 reporting agencies. All of them have the ability to go on your phone and freeze those accounts. Lock those accounts. If that account's locked, as a bad actor, I can't come in and open a mortgage in your name and take all the money out of it. You can literally, when you go to the car lot to buy a car, you go into your app and you say unlock, they run your credit, and you go lock, and you're done again. You have control of it at that point. Limit that blast radius, because you're going to get hacked. It's going to happen. How many of us can go a year or two without getting a notice from somebody that they got your social security number? I promise you, all of your data is out there. The bad actors have access to it, and they're sharing it. So treat your life accordingly.
Okay. No, that's great. Those are some great final thoughts. I mean, it goes.
You feel how do you feel? You feel better now, Eric?
Yeah, my takeaway is I'm going to stop using password 1234.
You should definitely stop that.
That's my
At least
takeaway.
put a password 5678. That'll be a little bit better. It'll last 12 seconds longer.
So see, I learned something today, Ted. You know, I got.
Look, you're winning.
Look,
You're winning.
you said exactly the right thing. It's the fundamentals.
There you go.
If you consistently deal with the fundamentals, you are a far harder target than everybody else, and they're in it to make money. They're not going to spend 6 months trying to break into your account when they can spend 6 seconds and break into someone else's.
Oof. Man,
Make it hard on them.
For sure. No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So if somebody wants to get more information from you, they've got questions, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Probably easiest is on LinkedIn. I don't check the messaging very often, but I do get them eventually. But I'm very easily accessible up there. It's just LinkedIn/IN/Gavin G. Easy peasy.
That's great. Thank you, Gavin Guttersen, for sharing everything that you shared. For those of you watching and listening to us right now, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show.
Right. Don't keep all this great information to yourself. And then don't forget, too, that you can go to the podcasting platforms and catch the 30-minute hour. You can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of those different podcasting platforms. You can hit follow or subscribe, and that way you never miss a future episode. Well, that's our time for this week on the 30-minute hour podcast. And until next time, have a great one.
Bye, everyone.